If you are interested in hearing about sensational and implausible narratives, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and enable notifications. Let us now proceed to present the subject of today's discourse. It is possible that I should have anticipated this outcome. I was aware that my wife had been spending a considerable amount of time with her friend, Audrey. I was not entirely pleased about this development. Audrey was divorced and had led a lifestyle that I found to be somewhat unorthodox. She was in a constant state of romantic relationships with different partners. It was challenging for me to remain abreast of these developments, yet I had no compelling reason to do so. I held a negative opinion of her, yet I never attempted to impede her relationship with my wife, Linda. In retrospect, this may have been a misstep. What I do know is that she played a pivotal role in persuading Linda to terminate our marriage. Linda and I had been married for 17 years and had a 15-year-old child. A year our daughter Tanya was 2 years younger than our son Clay. We resided in a typical suburban family home. Linda was employed in a doctor's office, and I was a successful salesperson of computer software. We owned a comfortable home, 2 vehicles, and a happy family. At least, that was my perception. The first indication that Linda did not share my idyllic view of the world was when I returned home one Friday night to find her and Audrey seated at the kitchen table. Audrey appeared as self-assured as ever, but Linda seemed slightly uneasy. It was evident that something was amiss. "Up here, darling," Linda said while standing to give me a kiss. "Hi, honey," I responded, putting my briefcase down and wrapping my arms around my lovely wife. After we kissed, I glanced at Audrey and greeted her with a simple hi. I informed her that I was going upstairs to change and then proceeded to do so. "Darling, would you like a cup of coffee?" She seemed to be searching for words. "Audrey and I have something we'd like to talk to you about when you come back down." I figured there was no time like the present. "You come back down, okay?" I inquired, regarding her with a discerning gaze. It was evident that she was grappling with a certain degree of unease. As I shifted my attention to Audrey, I observed a subtle expression of satisfaction on her face. I could not help but sense that the two of them were engaged in a discussion that might not align with my preferences. As I ascended the stairs, my mind began to race, formulating a multitude of potential scenarios regarding the circumstances I might encounter upon my return. However, none of these anticipated the actual outcome. In a matter of minutes, I had transformed from my formal attire, comprising a suit and tie, into a more relaxed ensemble of casual slacks. I also donned a polo shirt. My coffee was on the table in front of my chair when I returned to the kitchen. Audrey was engaged in animated conversation with someone. It seemed as though she was offering advice to my wife, but the volume was low, and I could not discern the specifics of their discussion. Neither of them noticed my return. I remained seated until I was on the opposite side of the table. I took a sip of coffee and gazed at them. "What is the purpose of this meeting?" I inquired. Linda was initially hesitant and remained silent for a moment until Audrey prompted her to speak. "Go ahead," Audrey said to my wife. "He loves you. He will understand." Linda lingered her eyes as if she were unable to look me in the face. "Honey, you know I love you very much, so please do not take this the wrong way." "Well, I want to go out on a few dates with Audrey, not all the time," she blurted out. "Just once in a while." I was not quite sure I understood what she meant by that. Dates, whatever she meant, the answer was going to be no. However, I was incredulous that she was actually discussing sexual intercourse with other men. I felt compelled to clarify her statement. "Just what do you mean by dates? Are you talking about having sex with other men?" My wife was attempting to reply, but Audrey interjected. "Doesn't love you, Robert." I was going to terminate the conversation by informing her that I was speaking with my wife, but I decided to allow her to speak her mind. I was certain that this was not my wife's idea. It was clear to me that the idea originated with Audrey. However, I was curious to ascertain how she had managed to persuade Linda to acquiesce. She proceeded. "It's just sex. It doesn't signify anything." We were discussing the matter, and she informed me that, in addition to you, she has only been with one other man in her entire life. That assertion is implausible. "Robert, I am certain you have been with a greater number of women than that. She should engage in some recreational sexual activity." I glanced back at my wife, wondering whether she would be amenable to sexual intercourse. Linda finally looked up at me. I attempted to disguise the pain in my face, but I believe I was unsuccessful. "Honey, I didn't say that," responded Audrey, attempting to redirect Linda's attention. "However, men have different approaches to intimacy. It's simply a matter of variety. There are numerous individuals who engage in such activities. It is evident that there are men who are capable of loving their wives enough to allow them the freedom to engage in extramarital sexual activities. However, this does not imply any form of commitment or exclusivity. Robert, I have discussed this matter with Linda, and we have come to the conclusion that it would be fair for you to pursue other sexual encounters as well, should you desire them. I turned my gaze back to Linda. I am uncertain if the emotion that I observed in her was fear or regret. I observed that she was beginning to perceive this as a significant misstep. I see, I stated in a neutral tone. I could sense tears welling up in my eyes, yet I was resolved to refrain from shedding them. Audrey, could you remain here for a brief period? I wish to engage in further discourse on this matter when I return. She responded with a triumphant look on her face, as though she had already won the argument. Where are you going? Linda asked, finally speaking again. I'll be back in a little while, I responded, but did not answer her question. I went into my home office and closed the door, as I had done many times before. Since I was a child, I have always taken this approach to life is misguided. It is not that I do not enjoy leisure activities. I am capable of socializing with the most convivial of individuals and possess a keen sense of humor. However, when confronted with significant issues, I adhere to a philosophy of direct confrontation. As I sat down at my computer and began typing my response to Linda's proposal, I experienced a surge of emotion. Despite my long-standing affection for Linda, I was taken aback by her decision to engage in sexual intercourse with another individual outside the confines of our marriage. Your actions have caused irreparable damage to our relationship and our marriage. I am aware that your friend Audrey is the driving force behind this decision, but your willingness to go along with her plan has already resulted in significant distress and emotional turmoil. Regarding your intended infidelity, I wish to make it clear that I will consider any sexual relations of any kind with a male or female as a betrayal and a violation of our wedding vows. For the sake of clarity, I define sexual relations as any form of oral or physical stimulation in a sexual manner. Should you choose to disregard my feelings on this matter and continue with your adulterous pursuit, I will take the following actions. 1. I will immediately file for divorce. 2. I will contact our parents and inform them of our impending divorce, providing a detailed explanation of my reasons for taking this action. 3. I will meet with the children and explain the circumstances leading to our divorce. 4. I will exhaust all avenues of investigation until the divorce is final, including contacting any individuals with whom you have been involved romantically, should they be married. Should you engage in any further romantic relationships, I will be obliged to inform the wives of your prospective partners. I will not show any leniency or compassion towards them or their families. It is imperative that you understand this before you put them and their families in a compromising position. Once the divorce process has commenced, there will be no possibility of reversal. We will always be connected through our children, but I will sever all emotional ties with you and begin rebuilding my life independently. You have the option to choose your course of action. The preceding paragraphs delineate the potential consequences of your decision to engage in sexual intercourse with other men. However, should you opt to continue in this marriage, I will require certain conditions, as previously stated. The discovery of your extramarital activities has caused me significant distress, exceeding what I had anticipated. I am uncertain whether I can forgive you or if the damage to our marriage can be repaired. Nevertheless, I am willing to attempt reconciliation, provided that you accept my terms. The first of which is, it is imperative that you sever all ties with Audrey. You are not to have any further contact with her for any reason whatsoever. You will move your belongings into the spare bedroom and sleep there until I decide otherwise. You will make an appointment with your doctor and be tested for sexually transmitted diseases. I will not even consider having sex with you until I know for sure you are safe. Should any results prove positive, I will immediately file for divorce. You will consent to putting a GPS in your car that I will access on a daily basis. Furthermore, I will require you to provide me with your current whereabouts on a daily basis and answer any questions I might have regarding your whereabouts without any negative attitude. Additionally, I will require you to agree to marriage counseling if you concur with my demands. I will try my best to forgive you, but rebuilding my trust will take time and patience. What you must do now, my darling, is choose. I pray you to choose wisely. Despite the pain I am in, I still love you. Robert, I have included the following people in the carbon copy. Audrey Simpson, Mr. and Mrs. Daryl Hoskins, Mr. and Mrs. Bryce Anderson, Mr. John Coulter, attorney at law. As I concluded my task, I could hear Linda and Audrey engaged in conversation. I surmised that they had relocated from the kitchen to the living room sofa. I was keen to ascertain the substance of their discussion, but ultimately concluded that it was of no consequence. I had taken my position and was unwilling to negotiate. I proceeded to utilize the mail merge function to address an envelope to my parents, Linda's parents, and our family attorney. I then stamped each envelope and made 2 additional copies for the co-conspirators. I observed both women turn their heads in my direction when they heard me exit my office. I stated that I would be right back and proceeded to the front door. I had something for the mailbox, I was informed. My wife attempted to complete her sentence, but I was already out the door. I proceeded to the corner and mailed all 3 copies of my deposition a few minutes later. I returned to the room shortly thereafter. I approached both women, who were seated on my couch, and handed them each a copy of my statement. "What is this?" Linda inquired. "It is my statement," I replied. "I have considered the matter with which we discussed." I have. In order to prevent any further misunderstandings, I carefully observed Linda's facial expressions as she read my statement. I noticed that tears immediately began to flow from her eyes. "You are a despicable individual," Audrey screamed. "What kind of person would do such a thing?" Linda asked, taking my wife's hand. "Shut up," my wife replied, jerking her hand from Audrey's grasp. "He is my husband, and I love him," she continued. "No one, including you, has the right to." In my presence, she was not to be addressed in any disrespectful manner. Audrey's expression was one of utter astonishment. My wife continued, "I want you out of my house and out of my life. I do not wish to see or hear from you again." Linda then stood and lifted Audrey up by the arm. "This is goodbye, Audrey," she said, escorting her former friend to the door. "I am serious. I listened to you, and now my marriage is in trouble. Stay away from me," she said, her voice quavering as she uttered these words before slamming the door in Audrey's face. Turning toward me, she was weeping openly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Yes, I accept your demands and anything else you say. I swear, Robert, I haven't done anything wrong. I'll be glad to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases. Just please tell me that eventually you'll forgive me. I know it will require an extended period of time, but I am committed to this relationship. I do not desire a divorce. It is difficult for me to envision my life without you. I have previously stated that I would attempt to address this issue. Linda, I am unable to provide a more definitive commitment at this time. However, if I observe any indication of your interest in pursuing a sexual encounter with another individual, regardless of the circumstances, I will be forced to terminate the relationship. However, I have no intention of ever being with anyone but you. I have since come to realize that I never truly wanted to be with her in the first place. That night, I helped her move her clothes to the spare bedroom. We informed the children that we had a disagreement and were sleeping in separate rooms until we resolved it. They were skeptical, as evidenced by their expressions, but they reluctantly accepted our explanation. The following day, I went out and purchased a GPS device for Linda's vehicle without her knowledge. Additionally, I acquired a recording device for the phones. It was a relatively simple device. It merely required plugging into any phone jack when a call was either placed or received from any phone in the house. It recorded both sides of the conversation. When the connection was terminated, the recorder ceased. I set it up in my office and concealed the unit behind. On Sunday, I installed the GPS device in Linda's vehicle and downloaded the necessary software to my laptop computer. Despite my optimism, I was not entirely confident about the future of our relationship. Linda's employment required her to work only 4 days a week, with the weekends and 1 additional day off. I closely monitored the GES signal throughout the day on Monday, and at approximately 10 o'clock, she left for the grocery store. The vehicle remained on the driveway throughout the day. Upon returning home that evening, I was still visibly uneasy and eager to review the recorded telephone conversation. The children were engaged in their homework at the kitchen table while Linda was occupied with preparing dinner. "Hello, dear," she said, approaching me with a kiss. I noticed a hint of disappointment in her eyes as she turned her cheek to me. "Let's talk later tonight when the children are asleep," she suggested. Once the children were in bed, she inquired again. My heartbeat accelerated, and I responded, "Yes." I was already experiencing anxiety after supper. I spent some time with the children and then informed them that I had work to do and retired to my office, closing the door behind me. I plugged a set of headphones into the recorder to ensure that only I could hear it. For a moment, my heart sank when I heard the first call, which was from Audrey. My wife answered on the second ring. "Hey girlfriend, is he at work? Can you talk?" The stipulation set forth by Robert in his written communication was that I terminate our friendship. I am not willing to take any chances on potentially compromising our relationship if you ever attempt to contact me again. I will inform everyone that you attempted to undermine my marriage. I am serious about this. I do not intend to communicate with you again. With that, the line went silent. I began to hope for a reconciliation. From her parents. It was evident that she had inherited her parents' characteristics. "Hello," I heard Linda answer with a sigh. I believe she was contemplating whether the call might be from Audrey again. She could continue, but she heard her father's voice through the phone. "Who is that? Are you talking to Linda? Give me that phone." "Hello. Hi, Dad," she answered with a shaky voice. "What is the matter with you? Is this how we raised you to cheat on your husband? How can you even think of such a thing? I am ashamed of you. We are both ashamed of you." I could hear Linda sniveling as she tried to answer him. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I know I've hurt you and Mom. I've certainly hurt Robert. I'm so sorry." I could hear her crying harder. Her dad heard her as well. It seemed to quell his anger a little. His voice was a little calmer when he spoke again. "I don't understand what got into you, girl. I sure as hell hope you told him you'd abide by those rules he put down." "Yes, Dad. I've already dropped Audrey as a friend. I informed her that I would prefer to terminate our friendship. I am unable to undergo the sexually transmitted diseases tests at my place of work due to the potential for embarrassment. Instead, I intend to visit an out-of-town clinic for the procedure. Additionally, I am striving to become the ideal wife. I am aware of the privilege of being offered a second chance, and I am committed to making the most of it. I am determined not to squander this opportunity." The conversation continued. The conversation continued for a few more minutes before the call was terminated. By the time it was over, all three parties had expressed their feelings. The most enlightening aspect of the call was the conversation between Linda and my mother. "Hi Mom, Linda." "Hi honey. It's so good to hear from you. How is everything? Obviously, you haven't received Robert's letter yet. Letter number, is everything all right?" my mother inquired. Well, Linda wanted to reply. "What is it? What is the matter? Are the children well? Has something happened to Robert?" I could hear panic in my mother's voice. "No, Mother. The children are well. Robert is well. I have done something foolish, and it has damaged our marriage. Robert has threatened to divorce me." "What did you do?" my mother inquired. "I informed him that I wished to date other men." "Why would you say something like that?" my mother asked. "I am unsure, Mother. I acknowledge that my actions were misguided. I allowed a friend of mine to influence me with a series of ill-considered ideas. She is single and frequently socializes with a variety of men. She has shared numerous anecdotes about their sexual experiences. She asserts that no two individuals engage in sexual intercourse in the same manner, and that while some may excel in this regard, everyone possesses unique characteristics. She frequently emphasized the potential for enjoyment and excitement that I was missing out on. She repeatedly suggested that I should engage in sexual activities with multiple partners. She encouraged me to engage with the world and experience the full range of life's possibilities. She suggested that she could introduce me to numerous individuals, and that we could arrange double dates. She continued to speak at length, and, gradually, I began to listen. "Linda, you are married, whereas she is single. That is a significant distinction," my mother replied, and my wife responded, but she introduced me to a friend of hers, a married friend of hers. Betty informed me that her husband permitted her to socialize with other men. She asserted that her husband was so devoted to her that he wanted her to enjoy herself. She explained that their relationship was merely physical, and that she and her friend were attempting to persuade me that Robert would do the same because he loved me. I was aware that he would never agree to such a thing, but I acquiesced to their suggestions. I did not consider the implications of their advice. The extent of the pain she was in was evident in her voice. "Oh, Linda, how could you?" she sobbed. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry," Linda replied. "What happened? Did he leave you?" "No, he didn't leave me," she said. "He gave me an ultimatum. Dump the girlfriend, who talked me into it, and give up any notion of sleeping with anyone else or divorcing. We're also going to go to..." A marriage counselor was dispatched to explain the situation to the family. The letter was sent to my parents, you, and my father, Anderson. It was also sent to our attorney. My parents already received the letter, but I assumed it would take another day to reach you. You could hear my mother crying. Linda, I am at a loss for words. I never thought you could be so cruel. I hope for your sake that Robert loves you as much as I think he does. I would have been severely reprimanded had I behaved in such a manner towards Bryce. I am aware that my mother is currently in a state of distress. I pledge to never inflict such pain upon him again. I came perilously close to losing him, but I am determined to demonstrate my remorse on a daily basis for the foreseeable future. I implore you to forgive me. The emotional distress caused by the anguished cries of both my parents had me in tears by 10 p.m. On that night, we ensured that the children were asleep and then proceeded to engage in conversation on the couch. I was still uncertain about the specifics of our discussion, but I could discern the formation of tears in Linda's eyes as she began to speak. I spoke with our parents today. My mother and father received your letter, she informed me with a forced chuckle. My father, in particular, was quite stern with me, she added after a moment of reflection. My parents had not yet received the letter, but I was confident they would do so the following day. I therefore called to attempt to mitigate the impact of the news. Unfortunately, I had not considered doing the same for my own parents. Understandably, they were hurt and disappointed in me. I am similarly disappointed in myself. I would like to reiterate my sincerest apologies. She wiped the tears from her eyes and continued. Furthermore, I implore you not to become enraged, but I feel compelled to inform you that old Ray also called. It appeared as though she assumed I was jesting when I stated that we were no longer friends. I reiterated that if she ever contacted me again, I would inform her that if she ever contacted me again, I would inform the public of her attempts to destabilize my marriage. She has a limited number of female acquaintances, and it is unlikely that she would risk losing the few she has. Consequently, I do not anticipate further communication from her, despite my awareness of these circumstances. I was pleased that she disclosed the calls she had made and expressed my gratitude by holding her hand and smiling. Furthermore, she expressed gratitude for my honesty. In truth, I never truly believed that Linda had engaged in infidelity. Had she done so, I do not believe that Audrey would have been able to refrain from disclosing this information to me. It is indubitable that she divulged the information. I am aware that HIV can remain undetected in the body for years before manifesting itself, yet all the other tests yielded negative results. Consequently, after 3 months, I finally permitted Linda to resume her position in our bed. Initially, our sexual intercourse was characterized by a certain awkwardness, but Linda was unwavering in her efforts to reestablish the intimacy we once shared. Even after the situation had returned to a state of equilibrium, she continued to demonstrate a willingness to comply with my desires and to do so with enthusiasm. I posit that our sexual relationship is currently more fulfilling than it has ever been. The marriage counseling sessions were beneficial, as was the input from Audrey and her associate, who subjected my wife to a comprehensive review of our interactions. On numerous occasions, even that Betty's husband was complicit in the affair. Based on her account, he attempted to persuade her that he was willing to engage in extramarital relations because he loved her deeply. He informed Linda that a man who truly loves his wife should be capable of setting aside his jealousy to make her happy. I genuinely believe that he was hoping to pursue a sexual relationship with her. It is possible that he was hoping to engage in sexual intercourse with her at some point in the future. I will have to conduct further research on this matter and express my feelings directly to him. Between the 3 of them, they provided substantial assistance in seducing my wife. It has been over a year since that unfortunate incident occurred. On the fateful day, despite having no reason to suspect anything untoward since then, I still monitor Linda's whereabouts with the GPS and also check her phone calls every so often. Once that seed of distrust has been planted, it is difficult to let it go. Next month, we will celebrate her mother and father's 50th wedding anniversary, reflecting on what we went through. Given the trajectory of our relationship thus far, I am reasonably confident that in 31 years and 3 months, we will be in a similar position. This concludes the narrative. If you found this account engaging, I would appreciate your positive feedback in the form of a thumbs up, as well as your subscription to receive further content of a similar nature. I have adopted a new style of presentation, so I would be grateful for your comments on whether you found it effective. Your support and feedback are invaluable to me. Thank you for watching.